What if the next penny you ignore is secretly worth more than a luxury car? Welcome back to Old Coins Research. Because this Lincoln wheat cent hiding in plain sight has stunned collectors with rare eras, wartime history, and jaw-dropping auction prices nobody saw coming. First coin. The 1941 Lincoln wheat cent carries the quiet weight of a nation standing on the edge of transformation. Struck during the tense months before the United States entered World War II, when factories still echoed with peacetime production, and copper flowed through the economy like blood through steel arteries. At first glance it looks ordinary, a small brown coin with Abraham Lincoln facing right and two wheat stalks framing the reverse. But collectors have spent decades chasing subtle differences hidden inside these cents, because 1941 became one of the final moments before wartime metal changes reshaped American coinage forever. Millions were produced at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, yet surviving examples with sharp details and original surfaces have become increasingly difficult to locate because these coins circulated heavily through the 1940s, passing through grocery stores, train stations, military bases, and family cash drawers. The warm reddish glow seen on uncirculated pieces can still stop collectors in their tracks because it reflects the original copper brilliance untouched by decades of fingerprints and oxidation, and that natural color often becomes the first clue that a seemingly common cent may hold unexpected significance. What fascinates collectors about the 1941 issue is how much personality can exist inside coins struck from the same year, since tiny production inconsistencies created varieties that continue to fuel discoveries even now. Some examples show unusually strong strikes where Lincoln's hair appears razor-sharp and every wheat grain on the reverse stands out with remarkable definition, while others display soft details caused by worn dies pushed hard during increased mint output. Specialists often examine the lettering in Liberty and In God We Trust under magnification because subtle doubling or spread in the letters can signal a desirable variety tied to the minting process itself. Even the rims tell stories, with broad raised edges sometimes hinting at pressure abnormalities during striking, and slightly off-center examples revealing moments when coin blanks shifted at the exact instant the dies came together. These details may sound microscopic to the average person, yet seasoned collectors know the difference between an ordinary circulated cent and a highly sought-after example can rest in a single line, a tiny shadow beneath a date digit, or a trace of unusual alignment that escaped the mint more than 80 years ago. The wartime atmosphere surrounding the 1941 Lincoln cent adds another layer of intrigue, because copper was becoming increasingly important for military production, making every cent from this period feel connected to a larger national story. Families saved coins unknowingly as the country prepared for uncertainty, and some of those untouched rolls remained hidden in attics, cigar boxes, and dresser drawers for generations before resurfacing decades later. That is why collectors become emotional when discovering original red specimens today, especially those preserved with almost blazing orange luster that look shockingly fresh despite the coin's age. The surface texture matters enormously because original mint frost, clean fields, and untouched color can elevate a coin from a modest collectible into something far more serious. Some 1941 cents also developed beautiful rainbow tunning over time, producing bands of violet, blue, and amber around the edges. And while tunning alone does not guarantee value, naturally aged surfaces with strong eye appeal can attract intense bidding from buyers searching for unique pieces that stand apart from ordinary brown circulation finds. Among the most captivating aspects of the 1941 Lincoln cent are the mint errors and anomalies that occasionally emerge from old collections, each carrying the feeling of a hidden accident frozen in metal. Collectors have reported examples with clipped planchets, die cracks cutting through Lincoln's portrait, dramatic off-center strikes, and doubled lettering that becomes visible only under close inspection. In rare situations, weakly mixed alloy compositions or improperly prepared blanks created unusual color tones and weight variations, which immediately attract specialists because a coin that weighs slightly outside the normal standard can indicate a legitimate mint anomaly rather than simple wear. A normal 1941 wheat cent should weigh approximately 3.11 grams when struck in bronze, so even a subtle deviation may deserve further investigation. Some examples show rotated die alignment where the reverse appears twisted relative to the front, while others reveal strange rim formations that signal pressure irregularities during production. These are the kinds of discoveries that transform a forgotten penny jar into an object of suspense, because collectors understand that authentic mint mistakes are finite, and every surviving piece represents a mechanical moment at the mint that can never be recreated. Value enters the story gradually, and this is where ordinary curiosity can suddenly become deeply personal. A circulated 1941 Lincoln cent might carry only modest collector interest, but cleaner examples with stronger details, attractive surfaces, or minor varieties have sometimes reached illustrative market levels around $2,500 to $7,500, depending on condition, rarity, and authentication. Coins displaying more noticeable strike anomalies, appealing color, or stronger collector demand have occasionally approached $9,000, while exceptionally sharp high-grade pieces with original mint brilliance have crossed into the $10,000 range at auction. These numbers are never guaranteed, and every coin depends heavily on authenticity, grading, eye appeal, and timing within the collector market, yet the possibility alone changes the way people look at loose change forever. For some viewers, finding a coin tied to those levels would feel like uncovering a sudden windfall hidden in plain sight, the kind of unexpected discovery that could cover major expenses or become the beginning of an entirely new passion for numismatics. The higher end of the market becomes even more dramatic when unusual mint anomalies or extraordinary preservation enter the picture, because rarity and condition together create a powerful combination that serious collectors aggressively pursue. Certain authenticated pieces with scarce production quirks or visually striking characteristics have been associated with illustrative values near $12,000 or $15,000, especially when they retain remarkable original surfaces that survived decades without cleaning or environmental damage. Coins with rare off-center strikes, exceptional doubling, or other legitimate mint-created abnormalities have sometimes climbed toward $25,000 when demand intensifies among specialists hunting for standout examples. Then there are the stories that electrify the hobby entirely, unexpected finds discovered in inherited jars or forgotten albums that later generated attention strong enough to push values towards $65,000 under the right circumstances. Those moments are extraordinarily uncommon, but they fuel the fascination surrounding wheat cents because they blur the line between everyday pocket change and once-in-a-lifetime historical artifacts. The possibility of an $80,000 example exists only at the farthest edge of rarity, tied to extraordinary circumstances involving elite preservation, major mint anomalies, historic significance, or unique collector demand. Yet even hearing such numbers transforms how people handle old coins. A single cent smaller than a bottle cap suddenly carries emotional gravity because it represents potential hidden history surviving unnoticed through generations of ordinary life. Some collectors compare discovering a truly exceptional wheat cent to finding a down payment for a home tucked inside a forgotten coffee tin, while others describe the emotional rush as more powerful than the value itself, because the coin becomes evidence that remarkable objects can still hide among common possessions. Still, caution matters enormously in this hobby because exaggerated claims spread quickly online, and genuine value only emerges through careful evaluation by experienced professionals. Cleaning a coin can instantly damage collector interest, and misidentifying environmental discoloration as a rare error often leads to disappointment, which is why responsible examination and authentication remain essential. When examining a 1941 Lincoln wheat cent, experienced collectors recommend slowing down and observing every detail under proper lighting because the smallest characteristics can completely change the story. Check the color first, since original red surfaces usually command stronger interest than dark brown corrosion, then examine the strike quality around Lincoln's cheek, jawline, and the wheat stalks on the reverse. Look carefully for doubled letters, uneven spacing, unusual die cracks, or rims that appear unusually broad or distorted, and compare the coin's alignment by rotating it slowly to detect possible die rotation. Weighing the coin accurately can also reveal important clues, especially if the metal composition differs from expectations, but any unusual result should always be verified by a professional grading service before assumptions are made. Somewhere right now, another overlooked wheat cent may still be sitting in an old desk drawer, taped inside a family album, or mixed into ordinary change without anyone realizing its story. And the next coin capable of shocking collectors across the country may already be waiting quietly in the most unexpected place imaginable. Next coin. The 1944 Lincoln wheat cent is the kind of coin most people would ignore without a second thought. A weathered copper cent buried in old jars, forgotten dresser drawers, and inherited collections. Yet behind its familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln lies one of the most fascinating chapters in American coin history. Struck during the height of World War II, the 1944 cent emerged at a moment when the United States was balancing military urgency with everyday commerce, and the coin itself became part of that struggle because the mint had just reversed a dramatic wartime experiment. In 1943, cents were produced from zinc-coated steel to conserve copper for military equipment, but public frustration with rusting and easily confused steel pennies pushed officials to return to a bronze composition in 1944 using recycled shell casings gathered from wartime firing ranges. That decision gave the 1944 wheat cent a deeply symbolic identity, transforming it from ordinary currency into a small metallic reminder of a nation fighting across oceans while trying to preserve normal life back home. Millions were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, yet the massive production numbers hide a surprising reality because only a tiny percentage survived with strong original surfaces, sharp details, and the unusual characteristics collectors spend decades searching to find. At first glance, the coin seems simple, with Lincoln's profile facing right and two curved wheat stalks framing the reverse. But specialists know the 1944 issue contains an incredible range of subtle differences that can dramatically affect collector interest. Some examples display rich reddish-orange mint luster that still glows beneath light despite existing for more than 80 years, while others developed deep chocolate tones from decades of circulation through factories, diners, and wartime cash registers. Collectors pay close attention to the date and lettering because tiny shifts in die pressure sometimes produce doubled letters, swollen digits, or strange distortions around Liberty and In God We Trust. In certain cases, the strike itself becomes the story, with unusually crisp details revealing fresh dies that captured every strand of Lincoln's hair and every grain line inside the wheat ears. The rims can also expose hidden clues because broad or uneven edges sometimes indicate abnormal striking pressure or slightly misaligned planchets, and experienced collectors know these tiny imperfections are often where the most valuable discoveries begin. Even the sound of the coin, when lightly handled, can differ depending on metal composition and wear, adding another layer of fascination to a cent most people once spent without hesitation. The real suspense surrounding the 1944 Lincoln wheat cent comes from the extraordinary mistakes that slipped through the mint during a time of overwhelming wartime production demands. As factories worked constantly to support the war effort, the possibility for mechanical mix-ups increased, and among the most famous results were the rare 1944 steel cents accidentally struck using leftover steel planchets from 1943 production. These coins became legendary because they should not exist at all, yet a handful escaped into circulation before anyone noticed the error. Unlike ordinary bronze 1944 cents, these rare steel examples appear silver gray instead of copper brown, instantly standing apart to trained eyes. Other unusual errors from the year include clipped planchets, off-center strikes, dramatic die cracks stretching across Lincoln's face, and doubled inscriptions that appear almost shadowed under magnification. Collectors also pursue examples with unusual die polishing lines, lamination flaws, or rotated reverse designs where the back image appears twisted relative to the front. Each of these mistakes represents a frozen accident inside a wartime mint operating under immense pressure, and that connection between historical urgency and mechanical imperfection is part of what makes the 1944 issue so emotionally powerful among numismatists today. Stories surrounding these cents often feel almost unreal because many important discoveries happened accidentally in ordinary places rather than inside elite collections. A child once noticed a strange silver-colored penny while counting lunch money, only for experts years later to identify it as a rare steel 1944 cent worth more than most cars. Another example reportedly sat unnoticed inside a tobacco tin for decades before authentication revealed it was a highly sought-after error tied directly to leftover wartime planchets. These stories create a psychological pull that keeps people searching through jars and rolls because every old wheat cent suddenly carries the possibility of hidden significance. The emotional impact grows stronger when collectors realize how many valuable pieces were likely lost, spent, or discarded before anyone understood their importance. Some coins vanished into circulation forever, worn smooth through years of handling, while others may still remain hidden inside forgotten family collections, waiting for someone patient enough to recognize the clues. That sense of missed opportunity fuels the obsession surrounding the 1944 issue, because it reminds people how easily history can pass unnoticed through ordinary hands. Only later does the conversation shift toward value, and this is where fascination can become deeply personal for viewers who suddenly wonder whether an overlooked coin nearby could carry extraordinary potential. Certain high-quality 1944 wheat cents with strong eye appeal, original red surfaces, or desirable varieties have recorded auction or private sale outcomes ranging from roughly $5,000 to $12,000, depending on grade, rarity, and collector demand. More advanced examples featuring noticeable doubling, dramatic strike anomalies, or exceptional preservation have climbed toward $20,000 when authenticated by respected grading services. Rare error specimens with unusual minting characteristics have crossed the $35,000 level under competitive bidding, particularly when collectors recognize the piece as unusually well preserved or historically important. These amounts are never guarantees, and the overwhelming majority of circulated wheat cents remain far more modest in value. Yet documented sales at these levels continue to fuel interest because they prove how dramatically condition and rarity can reshape the market for a seemingly common coin. The upper end of the market becomes even more intense when mint-state examples or rare wartime mistakes enter the conversation, because demand among elite collectors can become fiercely competitive. Certain sharply struck 1944 bronze cents with blazing original color and nearly flawless surfaces have reached recorded outcomes around $50,000 at major auctions, especially when the coin displayed extraordinary eye appeal that separated it from ordinary survivors. Even more astonishing are the rare error coins connected to the steel planchet accident, since authenticated examples have reached levels around $75,000 and beyond depending on preservation and provenance. These coins are treated almost like historical artifacts rather than simple currency because they embody a mistake that should never have happened during one of the most important manufacturing periods in American history. Collectors study them obsessively under magnification, analyzing surfaces, die markers, and metal composition to confirm authenticity, because counterfeit attempts have increased over the years due to the enormous financial stakes involved. At the extreme edge of rarity, the most extraordinary 1944 Lincoln wheat cents have achieved breathtaking auction records approaching $100. $0 or even $120,000 for examples considered unique, historically important, or nearly unmatched in quality. Those numbers represent exceptional cases rather than typical outcomes, but their existence has permanently transformed the reputation of the coin within the collector world. People hear stories about someone discovering a strange grey cent in a relative's old toolbox or inheriting a forgotten coin album that unknowingly contained a major rarity, and suddenly, the idea of searching through old change feels emotionally charged. A tiny 1-cent coin becomes linked to dreams of paying off debts, funding a home purchase, or experiencing the kind of once-in-a-lifetime discovery most people assume only happens to someone else. Yet seasoned collectors understand the difference between fantasy and reality because genuine rarities survive only in very small numbers, and emotional excitement alone can never replace careful analysis or expert verification. Responsible examination is what separates costly mistakes from legitimate discoveries, especially with a coin as heavily studied and widely counterfeited as the 1944 wheat cent. The first step is often checking the color because genuine bronze examples should display copper tones while rare steel errors appear silver gray, though altered coins can imitate both appearances deceptively. Weight becomes critically important since normal bronze 1944 cents typically weigh about 3.11 grams, while authentic steel planchet errors weigh noticeably less at around 2.7 grams, making a precise scale essential during evaluation. Collectors also inspect strike alignment, rim expansion, and lettering under magnification because doubled letters, unusual spacing, or distorted edges can reveal valuable minting abnormalities. Magnet testing is frequently discussed since genuine steel cents react differently than bronze examples, but even that alone cannot confirm authenticity because counterfeit alterations exist. Professional grading and authentication remain the safest path before any sale or public claim because improperly cleaned, altered, or misidentified coins regularly disappoint hopeful owners who acted too quickly, while the rare authentic discoveries continue to emerge quietly from unexpected places where history has remained hidden for generations. Next coin. The 1945 Lincoln wheat cent arrived during one of the most emotionally charged years in American history, struck as World War II approached its final chapter and millions of families waited for news from overseas battlefields. Yet despite its ordinary appearance, this small copper coin quietly absorbed the tension, uncertainty, and industrial intensity of that era. At first glance, it looks no different from countless other wheat cents that passed through grocery counters and military payroll offices. But collectors have long viewed the 1945 issue as a fascinating transitional survivor because it emerged at the exact moment the United States was shifting from wartime sacrifice toward hopes of peace and recovery. Bronze composition carried traces of recycled wartime metal, and every cent produced that year reflected a minting system operating under enormous pressure after years of non-stop demand. Huge quantities were struck at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, yet the overwhelming majority circulated heavily through the late 1940s and 1950s, meaning sharply preserved examples with original color and untouched surfaces became increasingly scarce as decades passed. What makes the coin so compelling today is the contrast between its familiar appearance and the realization that certain hidden varieties, striking abnormalities, and condition rarities transformed a common-looking cent into one of the most closely studied issues among Lincoln collectors. Collectors often describe the 1945 wheat cent as deceptively subtle because its secrets rarely reveal themselves immediately, forcing careful observers to slow down and study details that casual owners would never notice. Under proper lighting, some examples display a rich fiery red surface that still reflects the brilliance seen when the coin first left the mint more than 80 years ago, while others developed deep walnut brown tunning from decades of handling in pockets, purses, and old cash registers. Specialists pay intense attention to the sharpness of Lincoln's jawline, the separation inside the wheat stalks, and the texture of the lettering because strike quality varied dramatically depending on die condition and mint production speed. Certain coins show unusually crisp details suggesting early die usage, while others reveal soft, or blurry areas caused by worn equipment pushed beyond normal limits during wartime production schedules. Tiny imperfections around the rims sometimes hint at pressure irregularities during striking, and faint doubling within the date or lettering can transform an overlooked cent into a coin worthy of professional examination. These are not dramatic differences visible from across a room, which is exactly why important discoveries continue happening in old collections where valuable pieces sit unnoticed beside ordinary examples. The mystery deepens when mint errors enter the story because the 1945 issue produced a surprising range of unusual mistakes that continue to fascinate collectors decades later. Some examples escaped the mint with off-center strikes where part of the design drifted toward the edge, creating distorted blank areas that instantly separate them from standard coins. Others developed dramatic die cracks running through Lincoln's portrait or across the reverse wheat stalks, creating raised, jagged lines that appear almost like scars formed during production. There are also examples showing repunched mint marks, where the original mint letter was struck more than once at slightly different angles, producing visible shadows under magnification that collectors aggressively pursue. A few rare pieces exhibit lamination flaws caused by impurities in the metal mixture, resulting in peeling or split surfaces unlike ordinary circulation damage. Even subtle rotational misalignments between the front and reverse can become highly desirable when authenticated because they reveal moments when mint machinery drifted slightly out of calibration. Every error tells a mechanical story hidden inside the coin itself, capturing split-second production accidents that workers may never have noticed before the cents entered circulation by the millions. Part of the emotional pull surrounding the 1945 Lincoln wheat cent comes from the stories attached to unexpected discoveries, because some of the most important finds emerged from places nobody would consider valuable. One collector reportedly purchased a worn group of wheat cents for almost nothing at a local flea market before realizing one coin displayed a dramatic doubled feature tied to a rare die variety. Another family unknowingly kept a high-grade 1945 cent in a kitchen tin for generations, until an estate appraisal revealed the coin possessed extraordinary preservation and original mint color rarely seen for the issue. These stories create a haunting sense of possibility because they remind people how close extraordinary finds can remain to ordinary life. Valuable coins are not always locked inside museum cases or elite collections. Sometimes they spend decades buried in junk drawers, hidden in forgotten envelopes, or mixed into inherited jars passed quietly from one generation to another. That reality changes the emotional atmosphere around even the smallest penny because it introduces the unsettling idea that a missed opportunity worth thousands of dollars may have already slipped through countless hands unnoticed. The value discussion becomes more intense once collectors begin separating ordinary circulated pieces from examples carrying genuine rarity, exceptional preservation, or important mint abnormalities. Smaller but desirable error varieties tied to doubling, rim irregularities, or off-center strikes have produced documented auction and collector sale outcomes ranging from roughly $3,000 to $10,000 depending on condition, demand, and authentication. Coins with more unusual characteristics, especially those combining strong eye appeal with scarce production mistakes, have approached the $18,000 range under competitive bidding. High-grade examples retaining sharp strike definition and vibrant original color have also crossed into the $28,000 territory when certified by respected grading services, because true mint state survivors from this era remain surprisingly difficult to locate. None of these numbers are promises, and the vast majority of 1945 cents remain modest collectibles, yet the existence of recorded sales at these levels explains why experienced collectors examine even ordinary-looking wheat cents with such patience and intensity. The market becomes even more dramatic when strong error pieces and elite condition examples appear, because serious collectors understand how few truly exceptional 1945 cents survived untouched. Certain major error coins displaying dramatic off-center strikes, striking misalignments, or bold doubling effects have reached around $45,000 in verified sales, particularly when the error remained visually obvious without magnification. More extreme mint state error examples, especially those combining rarity with remarkable preservation, have climbed toward $65,000 as competition intensified among advanced Lincoln specialists. The fascination grows stronger with rare misstrikes that reveal severe production failures, since authenticated examples tied to unusual die events or planchet abnormalities have approached the $95,000 level in certain collector markets. At that point, the coin stops feeling like spare change entirely and begins resembling a historical object connected directly to the machinery, pressure, and human oversight of wartime American manufacturing. At the farthest edge of rarity are the extraordinary or nearly unique 1945 Lincoln wheat cents that have reportedly reached levels approaching $110,000 through major auctions or specialized private transactions, usually because they combine exceptional preservation with highly unusual mint characteristics almost never seen together. These are the coins that reshape lives emotionally as much as financially, because the people who discover them often describe disbelief before excitement. Imagine realizing a penny ignored for decades might equal years of savings, a major financial reset, or the kind of sudden opportunity people spend their lives hopping for but never expect to encounter in reality. Yet alongside those thrilling stories are equally powerful accounts of mischances, including valuable coins unknowingly spent, cleaned improperly, or sold too quickly before proper authentication revealed their significance. Those regrets linger within the collector world and reinforce the importance of caution, because rarity is fragile, and once a coin is altered or mishandled, much of its historical and financial value can disappear permanently. Careful examination remains essential for anyone studying a 1945 wheat cent, because the smallest details often separate ordinary examples from legitimate collector discoveries. Weight should always be checked with a precise scale, since deviations from the normal bronze standard may indicate unusual planchet issues or alterations requiring expert evaluation. Metal color deserves close attention, because original mint-tread surfaces are typically more desirable than darkened or artificially cleaned appearances, and unnatural shine can sometimes reveal damaging polishing attempts that reduce collector interest dramatically. The strike itself should be inspected carefully around Lincoln's portrait, the wheat stalks, and the lettering for evidence of doubling, unusual spacing, or weakly formed details tied to die wear or mechanical shifts during production. Rim expansion or uneven edges may suggest striking abnormalities, while reverse alignment can reveal subtle rotational errors invisible during casual handling. Professional authentication is strongly encouraged before any sale or public claim, because experienced grading services can identify altered coins, confirm genuine mint errors, and protect owners from impulsive decisions that might cost far more than they realize.